Ho ho ho! Guys, this is gonna be a Christmas special. Got my hat. So recently, I've played through a classic horror video game titled Silent Hill. Played this game many times in my life, and I wanted to do a video like this on so many levels because, like, I've actually done a video on Silent Hill already. It's actually on my channel. You can go check it out. It's not really polished though. It's an old video. I don't really like it. Guys, Silent Hill is among my list of favorite horror video games ever made, alongside Resident Evil and Dead Space. Silent Hill was very popular in the mid-2000s with the other titles like Silent Hill 3, 4, and the series unfortunately died down due to the Western developers getting rights to the games after the original 4 games that were made by Team Silent. Those games lost touch from what Team Silent made, but each game is to their own. I still love the Western games, I still love the original 4. I absolutely love Silent Hill in general. And it's something I appreciate about the games. They're scary, and they fuck with your mind a lot. Which brings me here. I guess the real reason is that I've grown with my editing skills over the past year. You guys, I love making videos for you guys. Anyway, enough prancing around. Let's just get into Silent Hill. So before we start talking about Silent Hill, let's talk about the history behind the game itself, how it all turned up to be. In September 1996, people from Konami grouped up and formed Team Silent. The idea was that Konami wanted to create a game successful in the US. At the time, the team had no idea how to proceed with the project. Over time, they lost faith in the game and considered quitting. Fortunately, the developers realized they have much more artistic freedoms, and so they ignored Konami's plans for a Hollywood-type game. For this, the team introduced a fear of the unknown. As a type of psychological horror, the director made sure to keep the plot as vague as possible to create a mystery for the players. They also based the American town as an interpretation of Western literature and films, as well as depictions of European towns. Keiichiro Toyama, the game's director, created the game scenario with inspiration from David Lynch movies and UFOs.
Have you seen an alien, please?
Artist Takayoshi Sato had a lot of problems with the higher-ups with Konami. It took him 2.5 years to render the cutscenes while living in the team's office. Sato said that the team intended to make a masterpiece instead of a traditional sales-oriented game at the time. The game debuted at the 1998 Electronic Entertainment Expo in Atlanta, Georgia, and garnered applause from audiences alike.
The only problem is, so is the rest of the town. You see, fabulous lighting effect now.
This reception persuaded Konami to push more attention to the development into Silent Hill and later showcased the game in London and in Japan that included a demo alongside Metal Gear Solid. The game was released on February 29th, 1999, and in Japan on March 4th, 1999, and in Europe on July 16th, 1999. So what even is Silent Hill about? What are the mysteries surrounding this lonely, once thriving western town? The story revolves around Harry Mason and his daughter Cheryl Mason as they take a vacation to a quiet resort town, Silent Hill. During this drive, a figure gets in the fucking way of Harry and he swerves off the damn road, crashing, killing him. That's it. That's game over. Nah, I'm kidding. But anyways, knocking him unconscious, he wakes up to see his daughter is missing and must search for her while uncovering the mysteries behind this sleepy little town. That is pretty much it for the synopsis without spoilers. You're basically just like an ordinary guy looking for his daughter. The story seems basic, and that's okay. It's not as a confusing story like Resident Evil and Metal Gear Solid, which I'm not throwing any shade towards them. There's just a lot to take in with those games. But with this one, it works well considering the protagonist is just a random guy that has no experience with guns or weapons at all. Moving on to the gameplay, the controls are awkward, but they're easy to get used to if you give them like 5 minutes. The game uses tank controls. At the time, some games also used tank controls like the first Resident Evil game. That one kinda got hard to get used to, but it was fine anyways. It's pretty clunky and weird for first-time players, but it works for this type of camera system the game has. Silent Hill uses a third-person perspective, though you're going to be doing a lot of running in this game. Most of the game also has fixed camera positions. This is where the tank controls have more of a role. Gameplay movement is also diverse. You can like walk, run, walk backwards, strafe side to side, even jump back. All of these can help you in sticky situations, and I've actually had to use the strafing movement during a boss fight here. The game tries its best to make the player have more control when coming across certain scenarios, and I love that. It literally like makes it more immersive, so you don't really see that. You can also collect items around the game world, like healing items, key items, puzzle items, and weapons. I found myself finding a lot of healing items, and I feel like this is one con of the game, as it was too generous giving out health drinks left to right. I had like almost 12 of each healing item at the end of the game, then I knew what to do with them. And the game felt too easy. I also had a shit ton of ammo as well, but found myself using quite a bit of handgun and shotgun ammo during the middle half as the creatures got more dangerous. This game is definitely tougher on hard mode, don't get me wrong. So if you want a challenge, definitely go on a hard mode, I'll say that. That is a real doozy. Exploration shines quite a bit here. You can sometimes have a detour and look around the place to find some interesting stuff that's inspired by real world places, like this story here that's like literally like a 7-Eleven. The school is based off the school from Kindergarten Cop with the Terminator. The player can find maps depending on which area they are. These maps can update in real time, giving us an easier time instead of backtracking so much. I took some time to look around the classrooms, and you can see drawings and posters. Take a look at this garage. The fixed camera positions also looked pretty cinematic. It captures some of that Hollywood horror feel to it. It brings up the tone more, leaving us to imagine what is on the other side of the screen, thinking of there is a monster beyond. This is where we move on to the combat of the game. Harry is no soldier, so we're limited on weapons. I'm surprised how well the combat works for a game like this, considering the time it was released. The movement flows well. Harry can have access to a small arsenal of guns and melee weapons such as the pistol and the pipe. Throughout the game, you can find more weapons too. Some of the bad stuff, there are some melee weapons that are pretty much useless without getting yourself hurt. I guess I see it as more of a comedic relief. For example, there's like an axe you come across throughout like at the 70% mark of the game, and I tried using it on a nurse, and the nurse kept knifing me. I was just confused, so there was like no knockback effect. I do like how the weapons are properly balanced. Like the pipe has some knockback effect that can stagger enemies, and you can move around with it. While the emergency hammer has insane damage, but you are limited on movement and can only stay in one spot while using it. Graphics haven't aged that well, but considering it's a 3D world, the devs did a fantastic job on the world building and the number of details in areas like the school and the hospital. It's very early PlayStation era that has that nostalgic feel, you know? All kept the atmosphere chilling and lonesome, almost as if the game makes you feel rather depressing. You can explore other places too, like this gas station with a save and some supplies, and also a police station where you can find some clues about the story itself. Puzzles in this game are pretty hard for first timers, but they're also well thought out and took me a long time to figure out the first time I've played through Silent Hill. Puzzles in games are mandatory, at least for me anyways. It adds some moments of silence from the terrors of Silent Hill, and it also adds a bit more realism, like we're a part of Harry himself. Some of which are pretty difficult. It definitely took me a long time, especially that piano puzzle. It took me forever to figure out. And here we move on to my favorite section of the review, the horror. This is the reason why I love horror in media. During the story, Harry will come across the Otherworld. Also known as the Nightmare World, this twisted dimension shifts reality to hell. The ground is replaced by bloody metal grates, the walls turn into bloody mutated leather almost, and it gets dark. Really dark. Harry's only source for light is his flashlight for most of the game. Some of these nightmare levels capture that intensity, the fight or flight response. Do you run? Or do you fight? A lot of games don't really capture that same feeling the OG Silent Hills had. I love how bloody and rusted some of the areas got too. It has a lot of industrial inspired tones, like grates and these wind turbines here that seem so out of place. But as to the total confusion of the Otherworld, it's very psychological. Even later on during the game, I had to flee due to the number of monsters there were during a section on a pier. The monsters you come across in this game are very well made and very grotesque. It's almost as if they were added last minute due to their random nature. The devs could have just added zombies or, you know, shit like that, but nope, these monsters actually serve a purpose. They are conjured by the consciousness of Alyssa Gillespie, one of the game's characters. This girl went through so much in the backstory that I won't give too much details about the rest of the story, but considering these monsters are a figment of her imagination, that just adds so much more interesting lore of the game itself. These monsters were created by Masahiro Ito, and he did an amazing job with these creatures. The monsters can signify what her consciousness fears are. For example, the flying beasts known as the air screamers attack Harry by flying over and attacking him with their talons. It's pretty cool how sometimes if you come up to one quietly, you can see them just chilling or just like eating some garbage out of like a bin, almost sleeping or resting in a way, like real animals. It goes to the rest of the monsters in the game too. You'll find them just chilling. These air screamers are conjured by Alyssa's memories of reading a book called The Lost World by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, which depicted the dinosaur. Another example is the rompers. These are ape-like humanoids that leap or romp, and that can cause massive damage to Harry if one body blows him. These guys are my favorite monster as they try not to be some type of animal, and they sell intimidation. These guys are hulking, but they're easy to run from if you run in zigzags. These guys depict Alyssa's fear of adults. As a child, she was grabbed a lot by her mother and felt helpless. That also goes to Harry, as rompers can easily take Harry down in a single body blow, making him feel helpless. During the latter half of the game, the nightmare world shifts into a more demented dimension and transforms these creatures into more menacing monsters. The air screamers turn into night flutters and the groaners turn into wormheads, symbolizing decay. The atmosphere and tone of the game is truly creepy. Running around in these dark, twisted versions of places you've explored before in the game is very chilling. The game does a great job of creating real tension and making the player feel like their sanity is starting to grip away from reality. Even the music changes from haunting ambience while running in the town to ear-piercing industrial noises accompanying the other world. Now then, let's talk about the music. The game's original score is both beautiful and haunting at the same time. It captures the essence of the game story with guitar and flute. The ambience during gameplay is also very haunting, almost melancholy, you know?
I see everything.
It makes the town exploring a lot more creepy considering the town is very solitary. It's also very beautiful and touching in such a way. For example, this scene.
Harry, why did they take your daughter? Why her?
I'm not sure myself. But, you know, Cheryl isn't my biological daughter. I actually haven't told her yet.
Composer Akira Yamaoka did the game's music and audio. He also did a lot of the other Silent Hill games' music as well. This guy makes the best horror music ever.
Nobody knew where she came from.
Moving on to the final segment of this review is the story. Some minor spoilers here, so skip here if you want to save it for another time. The story revolves around a cult that was trying to revive God, basically. I think this is the game's lowest point, I guess, as I never really got invested in its cult stuff, but I did really get invested in digging up certain clues about the drug epidemic, as Michael Kaufman, the director of the hospital in the game, worked with Dahlia Gillespie to getting a certain drug called White Claudia. I was somewhat invested on gathering clues to what happened to the town, as Sybil Bennett, a police officer that helps Harry Mason, mentioned the drugs that were being spread to the tourists, but they couldn't really figure out who was selling the drugs. Another con is definitely the voice acting. They could have honestly done a better job.
Have you got a gun?
No.
But it is understandable due to the hardware limitations. Nevertheless, the acting is fine. Overall, Silent Hill is a damn good survival horror video game that has captivated and scared gamers all around the world in 1999, including myself. I love horror games in general. I remember playing this game when I was a teenager and wanted to learn more about Silent Hill itself. With the upcoming new Silent Hill games on the way, I think it's a pretty good time to talk about Silent Hill again. And they were announced like last year, so. Anyways, thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe and share around. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody, and a Happy New Year.